Now we shall be discussing about the distribution of natural vegetation. And the classification of natural vegetation can be done in 4 ways, that is the forest, grasslands, scrubs and the tundra vegetation. When I talk of the forest vegetation, it is found at a place where there is abundant water, that is heavy rainfall, and the trees are huge long. When the water decreases, that is the moisture decreases, that is the time that the trees become smaller, both in terms of length as well as in terms of density, and this can be called as the grasslands. This is due to the fact that the moisture is decreasing in this kind of vegetation. Then we move on to the scrub vegetation, which is found in the dry areas which have very low rainfall. The leaves of such kind of trees are waxy and they try to retain the moisture by the system of transpiration. The trees generally have very long, deep rooted, grounded roots. Then we move on to the tundra vegetation, which is found in the cold polar regions, and here we find lichens and moises. So this was about the distribution of the natural vegetation in the world. And if you see it closely, you will observe that all of them is related to just one factor, that is the rainfall. When it is abundant, it is a forest vegetation. When it becomes less, it turns into a grassland. When there is scanty rainfall, that is the time we find scrubs, and the tundra of course is the colder regions of the world. So that was about the 4 natural vegetations of the world. Now if I have to divide the forest, I will divide it into 2, that is the evergreen and the deciduous forest. The difference between the 2 forests is that the evergreen forest, as the name is suggesting, ever remains green, because not all the trees shed their leaves at the same time. So some or the other trees in the forest are green, whereas in the deciduous forest we observe that all the trees shed their leaves at a particular time. So the forest becomes almost like barren without leaves. So that is the basic difference between the evergreen forest and the deciduous forest. Both the evergreen and the deciduous forest can be further classified into the tropical forest and the temperate forest. And here the classification factor is the altitude, that is at the height which they are found. So you have observed that there are 4 natural vegetations in the world, and the further classification of the forest is into evergreen and deciduous, which is further classified as tropical and temperate forests.